All right, you're good.
Well, okie Sinadapi. Good afternoon in some parts of the United States and Canada and I guess the world. And then good morning in some parts of the United States. Sinadapi just means how are you? Native Wellness Institute is just celebrating. This is our 90th week, bringing to you live Facebook Power Hour. So it's Nistu Nidaniko. That means my name is Makoyo Sukoyi, and my English name is Theda NewBreast, and I'm part of the team and founding members of Native Wellness Institute. We've been going strong for 22 years, and with our executive director, Jillian Joseph, and we got a whole gang. You see us on Power Hour, and you see us doing training, but we're evolving, and that transformation is our topic today. Is I did a poll this morning, and everyone under 40 kind of understood the term, the topic woke. But I just got off with Susan Palmer and she goes, "What does that mean?" So the 68 or the 50-year-old, or, I'll have to ask my mom, 83, or ask yourself, and please, put in the chat. Please tell us what the word woke means to you and what nation you're from. What tribal nation or indigenous nation or European nation, if that's, if you came over to Allison Island, please let us know where your ancestors came from and what woke means to you. So I'll just do a brief introduction. I pulled out one of my genealogy charts that goes up, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 6 generations on my dad's side. And then on my mom's side, we can go up like 6 generations back. So, and then it's just stories. So who I am is just a culmination of all those ancestors that were woke. They didn't get wiped out. And those ancestors were woke and aware. It's and an awareness, or it's waking up where you might have ways of thinking, ways of colonization, ways of patriarchy, ways of institutions might have brainwashed you to think a certain way. And when you pop, boom, you like, aha, that's not really you. And you get woke. So I'll just name off, I'm just going to do my dad's side, because during this time of the year, it's really good to remember the generosity and the kindness of our parents and our grandparents, because grandparents love to spoil us when we're little, and I was fortunate, I guess you could say I was a mini Poka, because my dad was the mini Poka. He was the youngest boy of Sam NewBreast Sr., who we called Monokini, and Agnes Ironpipe, who we knew as Atstanikiwa. And in our tribe, often the women are given warriors' names when they're born, little girls, because it'll give them strength to have a long, happy life. And so I was, my dad's, he wanted a boy, and that's okay, because in our tribe they like to have a boy first, but then we had Kathy, Wanda, Lori before we got the prize boy. But what was cool is, and I see in hindsight, is I got the benefit of all the uncles who were also my fathers and my dad. They would, this time of year, they would just my early memories of dad was his pack horses and going out with Dave Roundine and hunting. And and my dad, Robert Miniguns always said he was really good to go hunting with my dad, because he had all these hunting songs and they always had good luck. And my earliest memories, and I was, pretty little. And so I grew up, there wasn't, we had wild meat and dad hunted. And I remember him and Dave and others that would come back, and they would have pack horses, and they would give the hindquarters of, the elk or whatever they got, moose, whatever they got, and they would give it out to, we live next to a Mike Swims Under, my, our original allotment is there on Big Badger. And so I could see my dad, and I remember grandma, she would always say, Atstanikiwa, that a woman's best possession is a sharp knife. So watch out. No. Anyway, but I just remember, where they're sharpening the knives, and that everybody got happy, and and we ate big because they cooked up a lot, and then they shared, and they dried meat, and I think it's a succulent delicacy, raw kidney, just like how it is. But if you got a little bit of salt and you put that raw kidney and you eat it, man, that's delicious. So that's, I guess, so I'll just name on my dad's side, they're, and this is, part of healing and being woke, it's good to look at your past, but it's better to understand your past and have an understanding of it. And so in my understanding, John Enalt Eagle Ribs was my biological father of my grandpa Sam, but he was also the biological father, which was very normal in those days. He had many wives. So he was the biological father of Mary Spotted Bear, Joe Blackman, Annie Rutherford, Irene Bullshield up on the Alberta side. So I'll just name those names. And so on my grandma's side, and I'm just telling you because, one of the woke things that Native Wellness is finding with healing of any person, any human being, is you get woke when you find out who your ancestors are. You get, even the stories of, when they come to Ellison Island, are the stories, you get woke when you see how the women were their life pattern, and you get woke when you see how your father and all the men, what was their experience. So again, just allow yourself to peacefully explore that. So I'll just name on Atstaniki, Agnes Ironpipe. Her significant brothers were we know him as Beaver, and he was my babysitter, and I grew up with him. And I just Beaver was when he was born, one of his feet was webbed, and it looked like a beaver, so they called him Beaver. We don't know if he was stuck shape shifting or whatever. He was human, but his foot looked like a beaver. And but he adopted Frankie Chief All Over, and he then the other brother of my, and these are important, the other brother of my grandma was Joe Boss, and we call him Joseph Ironpipe. And then it goes up, their Boy Chief, walking down the hill, Mini Strike, sitting behind, hits all, Catherine, Gun First, Chipper, Bull Calf, Wolf Chief. And so I'll just I won't, it's, as you can see, it's complicated ancestors, which is pretty cool. So the first thing that Native Wellness Institute would like to share with you, and this is like, woohoo! Oh my God, this is the 90th week. And thank you, Shailene, for orchestrating, and we have our staff, and our main office is in Gresham, Oregon, but we're scattered. Some of us are in Arizona. Our honorary board members are in South Dakota. We're scattered all over the place. And with our indigenous 20 something, we have some of some of them are in Australia, some of them are in Maori. So we're all over the place. So during this pandemic, the beauty is we in March of 2020, everything that we had scheduled was canceled. And in the words of Jolene Joseph, she said, we turned on a dime, and we just said, well, we got to still offer things that will help our people keep the teachings of their ancestors alive and to heal. And, this is our logo. And I was just looking, because I carry these around and we put our logo on everything. I got one on my truck, how anyway, we got them all over, but that's who we are. And we started the Power Hour 7 days a week. We went to 5 days a week. We did special ones on Indigenous Day. And then now during this time, starting ceremonially during the summer, we went to Wellness Wednesdays. So welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. And I'm just I'm visiting with you. I'm your guest speaker today. So I wanted to share with you concepts of just what we have viewed that helps people heal. And one of the things that Native Wellness does really well is we call it an Indian village. And pre-pandemic, you would come to our gatherings. And by the way, we're having one in April. We're going to ally with our brothers and sisters of the Native Dads Network, Sacred Fatherhood and Motherhood in White Bison. And we're coming together in April 5th, 6th, and 7th in Brooks, California. So come join us. It's just a large healing conference where we're with people who do healing. And there's many more organizations, but we don't want to compete anymore. We want to ally and provide healing. And so that's the group that is allied to do the first annual. So come join us. But we used to have these healing villages. And so I want to speak about a couple of what happens at those healing villages. Some of our healing villages, we made rattles. Some of our healing villages, we made drums, we made hand drums. We never made a big drum. Maybe we need to make a big drum too. And a lot of our team is, I'm Blackfeet, and a lot of those kinds of things, you have to have transfer rights, but we honor what other tribes do. And so one of the, I wanted to first speak about a healing activity that we did in the 90s. And I was looking up because being woke, and when you're woke, one of the things is, you have to look to the past to see what has happened in your family, but for yourself too. And one of the activities that Native Wellness would do it was healing masks. And I just grabbed mine off the wall. I actually had to dust it off because it's been hanging on the wall for quite a while. But I wanted to speak about it because in healing and being woke, when you look at the past, sometimes it's just the understanding of it. And so this was the mask that Theda NewBreast taught us to make, and many of our members learned. It was, she got the transfer rights from a Hawaiian person that makes healing masks. And so so then you can see it's 3-dimensional, because one of the healing activities is, especially, like here we are on Zoom, and we never see ourselves 3-dimensional. And this one was made at one of our Native Wellness Institute's efforts in 1994. And I just wanted to speak about it, and I leave it where I can see it. And then we have other masks of family members, because we did tribal masks. And when I was looking at it, it's not complete, because I had dreams of these tears or these marks. And so I put those on. But I was looking at it because I was going through a very painful divorce, from a good man, but he was relapsing. And so I chose my sobriety over that marriage. And it broke my heart. My heart was broken. It was just obliterated. And I can get in touch with that feeling. I wanted so desperately to save that marriage. And I tried everything. You know, he was a Vietnam vet, combat vet. Because wounded people like fall in love with the wounded people. I mean, I'm sorry. It's like, you know, the nice little calm guys are too dull. So, but in this mask, I could see my sadness. My heart was completely broken. And I was, trying to, put, like when we're healing, when we're broken, we try to put that smile on our face, but it was trying to have a smile, but I could see it. And then later on, I'd say it was like, maybe about 10 years ago, I, because in East Duke Crazy Dog, Brave Dog, I was transferred in by Leon Rattler. You always should say who does it, because then there's no fake Indians. Because fake Indians, they never name the names. Anyway, I was transferred in, and Rick and Elsie Ground in 2007, because they watch you and they see the kind of work that you do. And it was such an honor. So you're always, you don't get out of it. You have to help our people till my last breath. And as I get older, I mean, I used to, do all the hard work, peel all the teepee poles, do all the hard work, and but I do less, as you get older, they don't work you to death. They give you a break. They just want to hear your wisdom sometimes. Anyway, that's so about 10 years ago, and this comes from Rick Grounds, he transferred that I could paint. And so I painted Crazy Dog. And that really helped my healing, because in hindsight, I could see that my purpose is to help my people and to help others. And I say my people, not only my own tribe. And that's why I live with my tribe, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I am a recovering urban Indian. My family went on relocation in 1963 to Oakland, California. So I grew up in Oakland. So I was a probation officer, one of my first jobs in Oakland, crisis social worker. So that's part of who I am. But this term woke, and I guess I'm holding this up because isn't this interesting? It's very interesting. And, and I smudged it before I decided to share it, because we welcome you to make a healing mask. You should make a pandemic healing mask. And, it's just like what you make casts out of, but you cut it into circles and triangles. And Lori NewBreast we're going to have a TA, and I'm going to go on a road trip in the spring and go and make healing masks current in 2022 with some of my friends. And maybe we'll do it at the healing conference in April. I'll just bring the supplies. Whoever wants to make a healing mask, we invite you. And because there's something about when you look at it three-dimensional, you can see yourself in a different perspective. And it's there's a lot of spiritual teachings in it too, but that takes a long time. And I just wanted to share some concepts of being woke. And so, and some of you, I want to ask a couple questions, and you can just put it in the chat, or, send us a message in any way. Could you just say how, when you remember, how many years ago was it that you decided you were going to break some patterns in your family, or break some patterns in your life? You weren't going to, and by breaking patterns, I mean, what that means is, like if everybody drank and went to jail, you say, no, I'm not going to break that pattern. I'm not going to just keep drinking and going to jail. or the pattern might be that you're a womanizer or manizer, and you don't have respect for a partner. And so you might say, I'm going to break that pattern. It also might be, in our family right now, and we try hard because we don't want to, we're really trying to adjust what we eat and break the pattern of everybody being diabetic and dying young and getting their legs cut off and not seeing that kind of stuff. So we're trying to break that pattern. It might be, so those are some of those, but think at the same time, the wisdom side. And that's when we're woke, when we begin to wake up, we begin to look at the resilience side of things and the resiliency in our family. It's just, like it's here, it's getting close to below zero. And just on all my, like Facebook, Instagram, or just visiting with my relatives around here, we've had these discussions on how resilient our ancestors were. How they spent the winter below zero and kept the fire going, and how resilient our ancestors and how smart they were and what wisdom they had around the patterns. I mean, even like yesterday was so beautiful. There was many ceremonies around the solstice all over the world, but I saw some of my relatives, yoo-hoo, Opakasan up at Lethbridge. I saw some of you had a fire going and you were round dancing, and just anyway, that was just such a, because we can't go back and forth across the border like we used to. Isn't that mean? I can't even go see my relatives. It's all kinds of complicated. But this wisdom and this breaking the pattern. So what are some of the patterns in your family? And this is a question you should ask yourself, that you're breaking the pattern, but you're also bringing in new patterns. And what are the new patterns, are the patterns that we've always done that have kept us whole. So this solstice, and I was one of our elders, and I just love to read his stuff. Dwayne Mistaken Chief, and he was just speaking about the various beliefs around how we saw the solstice, and how and just praying and appreciating however people celebrate this time, even those that go all out for Christmas. And that but one of the things that I remember in what he was saying, and then I heard it again from when I was speaking with another family member of mine, is when we first encountered, because we knew nothing of Christianity. We weren't Christian. We were Natsitapi, Blackfoot. Just as in your tribe, you may have been Navajo. You may have been from Squaxin. You may have been from Mandan, Hidatsa, or Rikara. Or it's good to look at when you brought in a different kind of ceremony. But one of the things I remember of what Dwayne was saying was that when the missionaries first brought what was Santa Claus, it was scary, and so our people beat up Santa. Instead of, Santa got run over by a reindeer, it was the Blackfoot beat up Santa. and I laughed because it was like, I could just see our people, they didn't have, when you're woke and your idea, your mindset, and your spirituality development was different. When you saw new things, it could be scary. I remember Billy Jones. He's the oldest living bisexual man, still healthy. I mean, he's in a wheelchair, but I remember Billy is from the Caribbean. And the first time he saw white people, he thought they were ghosts. he really thought it just scared them because they were this color and it scared them. So just think about, when you're woke, you have to look at the history of your creation stories. You have to look at the history of your rites of passage. You have to look at the history of why you need to get an Indian name. You need to look at the history of, even things like arranged marriage. When did in your family, when did you have arranged marriage? And then when was there freedom of choice to choose a partner? Because that wasn't that long ago. So in this woke, this woke stage, you can see it has branches. There's so many things, at least, and I'm just I'm 65 years old, and man, it's a good time in my life, at least for, I went out, there was kind of blizzarding, and I chopped my own wood, and we just got a whole elk processed. So I'm going to try, because when you get this age, you really need to eat better. And I grew up in a family where my mom, I didn't grow up, anyway, I'm not going to go there. I wasn't raised on potato chips or pop. I don't drink pop. I don't even drink coffee anymore. And people think I'm a weirdo, but I got woke while I was sun dancing, because 10 years ago, my mother in her 70s, and I was raised with that generation. I always do what my mom says. And she just said, I want to, because she would always fast. We grew up with her fasting 4 times a year. And she wouldn't eat or drink, and she would stay in prayer. And then even as she went on in life fasting, she would even during the 4, and she would do it, around the equinox and the solstice. So I guess I grew up watching that those were significant times in the earth and the universe, and watching my mom fast and watching it, and then eventually, fasting myself with the little dogs, Muffet and Edward Little Dog. They put me up and fast in the winter, because it was right around December 20th. And I remember it snowed, and everyone thought they were watching me, and they had to leave. And because Stanog was in the hospital, and I was left by myself, and I would ration the wood, and I didn't think I was going to die, but when you open the door and the snow's halfway up, and I knew I wasn't going to die, but I knew I had to be disciplined in my prayer. I knew that that was my test. My test was to not quit or leave. And so I stayed there, and it's always Edward, when they did come back, because it was like I had one more day to go, and he came out and he opened the door, and and this is how he goes, "Are you dead?" Edward said, "Are you dead?" And I was like rolled up, I had Carhartts on. And I said, "No, I'm still here." And I started laughing, because that was kind of the way he taught us. It was just laugh at, I wasn't dead. And but that woke mom was in her 70s, and she said, I wanted to tell you kids, I want to Sundance one more time. And this was with Buster Yellow Kitten, because they were really good friends, and they spiritually were just I don't know, they had so much wisdom, and they still do. Mom does. He's gone, but they were just so kind and so gentle, and they would just tease you when you were foolish. And it was okay to be foolish, but once you woke and you knew you shouldn't be foolish anymore. And I guess that was like the next thing I'd like to kind of just share with you is, once you're woke, once we know the truth, you can't unknow the truth, so you can't go back. And so Mom had she just said, I want to dance, I want to fast and dance for gratitude. and so we were all, she calls us all together. And so then we know we got to support that. But then, my mom is, she would always look at me and when your parents, she would go, you too. And when she did that, when your mom does that, I went, oh. And, because instantly I thought, oh man, can I, I'm getting older. Can I still go 4 days without water and drink? And anyway, long story short, we both danced, and it was just beautiful, and it wasn't hard at all. It was hard on her that third day when she would almost be falling down. And so I was taught by Buster, the way when someone's just about ready to give up, just about ready, crying and saying, I'm going to quit, I'm not going to do it anymore. And my mom would, she'd almost be falling down, but he taught us that's when you dance harder. And you just talk directly to Estabatapio, and you just pray, and you dance harder. And if you got the strength, you can say Estabatapio, take some of what I have and lift them back up. Don't let them fall. And so that's woke. When you realize the best thing you can do is pray for people. You don't have to codependently be a martyr and run around try to save everyone. You can pray for them. And that's woke. And, so that during that time, and I'll just say, that was, I was going to tell you how I still can't believe I gave up coffee. Because I'm in recovery, I'm recovering alcoholic and recovering drug addict, so when we were in there, and often when would be fasting, there's this, and some of you, this, I'm just describing, this is how I got woke in some respect. The spirits would, sometimes they talk to you telepathically, or they talk to you. And my, one of the ones that speaks to me mainly in dreams, but was speaking to me there. It's a nonchalant kind of, like one time that spirit told me, when people come to your house, you start rattling those pots and pans. So that means as soon as they come to your house, you start cooking for them, But when we were in there, and I was dancing next to my mom, and looking at the center pole, and just, they say stay focused. And when you stay focused, it's not that hard. When you stay focused in prayer, it's when you start going to the outside and, trying to remember a bill you paid, or especially if you have a resentment towards someone, if you think about that, then you should pray for them. You should pray for them, but I remember that voice came in, and this is when I got woke. And I'm still, I'm still waking up. I'm not like the wisdom of it. I'm still learning. I heard it say, oh, you're probably gonna live to be 90. And if you still want to be walking when you're 89, there's some things you gotta quit. Then that's all it said. And so, like you get that, okay, so you get the wisdom. And woke, you get wisdom in different ways. It's you can't Google some woke. You can read and have a consciousness, but being woke is not doesn't come from a certification or a PhD. There's consciousness, but this woke. So when I came out of there, something happened, and I never drank coffee again. I mean, and it's part of that belief. Something happened because I was a fiend. I had to have Pete's coffee, French roast grind, espresso machine. I had to have half and half or real cream. I was a drug addict. I'm a drug addict. So, and I never drank coffee again. So that's a story. So with it, with your family over this time, ask your family, what in these 20, because there'll be 24 months on the 31st that we were declared a pandemic, 2 years. And It'll be what is woke in your family? And is this pandemic just a blessing waking us up? Are these many, many deaths and losses and challenges, even when we couldn't breathe, is woke? Is it a blessing? Is it a gift for us to appreciate really what is? And and I because I love just the things I'm witnessing. I mean, in my own neighborhood, around forgiveness, people who used to kind of spar around, being together and listening to each other. I love watching, I love our tribal council. I think these 9 people, because when I'm seeing my mother on tribal council and what was done to her as a woman, and the challenges, but I really think our tribal council, I want my hats off to them, because I think that they banded together, the 9 of them, to do the best job they could for all 18,000 enrolled and 20,000 descendants. And that's woke, because so one thing I try not to awoke is in this gift of this pandemic, try to only say the good things that people do. When you only point out what they do well, what they have accomplished, what they it could be graduations, it could be in their job, especially those have been doing it many, many years. So in this woke time, I chose never to speak badly about my tribal council. I only choose to speak about the good things that they do. But then, it's also, there's another woke. these are just the realities. If you wake up and find evidence that some of your leaders, either elected or your CEOs or your directors, are doing something like embezzlement, because embezzlement, there's a wokeness to it, because embezzlement is a behavior that comes out of trauma. There's, when you're traumatized, and I see this with some of the women and the men and the families that I've worked with over the past 5 decades. If you're traumatized, you have, once you can get access to power or money, you think you are entitled. You are entitled to take a little bit. and anyway, but so there is a wokeness, like when you find out someone is embezzling, like took out payroll advancements for years and never paid it back, or whatever they did, that when you're woke, what should you do? Turn a blind eye? What should you do? I think that we're now realizing that in the wokeness, there's a kinder and gentle way, so everybody should be transparent. And so being transparent is a wokeness. And that doesn't mean, you go on and, Facebook your gynecology appointments. Yeah, I'm woke, I'm transparent. No. It means that you just try to be honest, rigorously honest, transparent. Because you know how we are, everybody's like, okay, this is what they're saying, but this is what was really happening. So I just try to encourage in healing and being woke, be transparent. And if you have a tender heart, if you're in a tender place, just say you have a tender heart. You don't have to say, all of the things that have hurt you really hard to make that heart tender. You just say you have a tender heart. But be transparent. It's also be transparent with your intentions and your motivations. And I think that's part of the wokeness. Like, before coming on here, I just lit another smudge. I thought I would share with you my wokeness. the wokeness, and I guess I'll, because as Gene Tagabon and the rest of our gang, Robert Johnston, Lavina, we're always storytelling. It's like last night, our 2-hour talking circle was about story wheels. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you, and it's because of a dream and just being transparent last night. And it's kind of heavy. It's and I hope you can. I'm just going to kind of move it slow. It's a petrified rock, and it's so cool because there's little people footprints right here, and there's like another. So this is, and I'm not a geologist, but 300,000 years old. Yays. But yesterday I decided to go sit. It was really cold, and I went and sat by the lake, and where I usually sit, there was a log sticking up, and this rock was sitting on there. And I walk by that all the time. This rock was not there before. So this rock was sitting there, and I thought, wow. And usually, when you Natu Sokotuk, a holy rock, I would, because I'm, I love rocks. And how, raise your hand or, put it in the chat, tell us about your rock. Because, when you're a little kid, you just love rocks. And so I thought, wow, I have another rock similar. And I thought, it's the solstice. I wonder if I could ask that rock if I could take it home and pray with it, or so anyway, I didn't have my tobacco, but Atstanikiwa Agnes Ironpipe was the midwife, delivered all the babies on the south side. The last baby she delivered was Snake Comes at Night. And but she used to say, you can take when you take something from the earth, you can put a gracious offering of your spit, your saliva, because that's part of your living being, and ask permission to take it. So sometimes when we're going, getting roots and we're getting plants, and we can offer our spit as a thank you and ask that plant if we could use you in healing. So I put a little out, and I picked this rock up, and I just said, I kind of like asked it, and my dog Okan Ironpipe was there. I said, is it okay if I take you? And it felt okay. So then when I was walking home, it's not the lightest little thing. I'm glad the rock wasn't this big. But I was like carrying it home. And so then I started, singing a little song, and that I know that goes to the Blue Thunder teepee that the Iron Pipes used to have, and just ask, just singing at home. And it just felt right. It just felt right. So the story I want in this wokeness, when I came home, I set it by where I smoked my personal pipes and stuff, and I Gene Tagabon had given me some flat cedar that I ground up, and so I just kind of covered it with some flat cedar, and said, well, I'll pray with you and see if you want to stay here, but let me know if you want me to put you back. Like if you want to go back into the water, or go over there. But anyway, so last night, and I'll just it's the importance of dreams. By now, when you're stressed, and when you're overworked and you're exhausted, you can't remember your dreams. So one of the wokeness is to get yourself in a meditative, a serene place where rituals of when you go to sleep, so that you can remember your dreams. So what I dreamt last night, and I guess I'm being transparent, and you can think whatever, crazy old Indian woman in the woods. That's me. Anyway, but I dreamt so I was able to share with one of my sisters, and I'm gonna tell my mom, because I'm gonna call her after I'm done here. Is I saw, and Imoi Tapi, Bigfoot. And in I know the Crees, they always tell us that their base word is the same word, Bigfoot and little people. But because like the prince in this, it's the same. But I saw a Bigfoot, but this Bigfoot was like a stereotypical, not like the other Bigfoots I've dreamt of, but this Bigfoot. Well, he was pretty big, and but he had a rock like this, and he was holding it out, and he was walking in my dream, and he was walking right over here, maybe just about 100 yards. I'm looking out the window, and he was walking with this rock, and then he walked, and so yards and meters. Okay, so like he could walk about when he walked about 20 meters, and he had this rock. He had a rock that kind of looks like this rock. He turned into a man carrying the rock. And so it wasn't a man I could recognize, but it was still a big man, but it was carrying the rock. And so then I'm just sharing that there was more to the dream, but I thought, oh, wow, that's so cool. Amoy Tapi came into my dream, and maybe was telling me, and it was bringing that rock this way to my house. And so they were telling me that it was okay to have the rock. So I'm sharing in this wokeness. Please start sharing your dreams with your family. And, one of, we were trained by my mom, and I guess my grandma, from the time, the first thing that we when we woke up as children, they would say, good morning, and what did you dream? And so it was always our discussion in our family is always, what did we dream? So maybe in our wokeness, because in your dreams, you can't, your subconscious gets to come out, and you can travel, you can do all of these things. And the stuff that you hide from this brain, because sometimes this brain here is not your friend. It's what's in here that's your friend. That's why they say the longest journey is from here to your heart, from your head to your heart. And so then try to, in your wokeness, not only, watch the Power Hour, watch podcasts, spiritually try to remember your dreams and talk about it, because the best interpreter is people who know you. And people that know you really well, they can help you interpret your dreams. And I just say, because it's wokeness in our conscious world, but also our dreams will, like we made big decisions based on our dreams. That was the wokeness. And so a transparency and a awakeness. And so I'll say that much about that. And I better check the time, because one of the things that has happened, the wokeness in me, is time is organic, and time is has changed for me. Because like I feel like I'm just visiting with you, and Native Wellness Institute. That's what our Power Hours. We just want to give you stuff that will bring back hope and encouragement, so that you take good care of yourself, that there's self-care and there's wellness, and that the teachings, our mission is the teachings of our ancestors. So anything that umbrellas underneath that is what Native Wellness Institute tries to do as a team. So okay, so I'm checking the time. Sometimes I'll just like start G Tagapon. He goes, we just go on, and and I'm but I want to just be with you this hour. And so one of the things is to remember, this is the 90th week, is all of our Power Hours because we go back and we laugh at someone like when we first started. It's good the best wokeness is to laugh at yourself. How we were, we were just getting familiar. And I could, thank you, Shailene, because like I remember Shailene goes, "What's your Facebook password?" I said, "I don't know." Never worried about change there anyway. But then the wokeness is now I change it every, few weeks. Anyway, but that wokeness, NWI power hours are available. They'll be in the cloud. They'll be when we're dead, they'll still be there. So sheesh, I better kind of hide my turkey neck. No, I love my turkey neck. They're there, and we have our team has some incredible power hours on almost every topic of healing, every BIPOC viewpoint, every LGBTQ two-spirited, every generation, 20-year-old, 30-year-olds. We need to do a power hour on 60 and over, eh? But there's a lot of and I go back, like sometimes if I need an uplift, I like to tune into, especially when our team was like doing collective power hours. You can go to YouTube, Native Wellness Institute, and they're all there. So during this, this sometimes, and I still hear my relatives say the holiday blues, or that there's depression, or there's these. So if you need an uplift, that's one suggestion. One suggestion is just to go and to listen to the other power hours. And so closing words on being woke. With my work, and a lot of my clinical work is with pregnant addicts and mental health and healing. And I was thinking of general, I can hear Ocon Iron Pipe. I got to go get him too, because he's actually the boss. He's barking away, but I don't want to be trying to carry everything to the front door. But woke, when you're healing. I remember a story of a woman that I love dearly, and she's still alive and she's doing great. But her wokeness is she couldn't remember a lot of her childhood, and she never learned to drive. And she would try to learn to take driving lessons. And her wokeness came when she went into therapy, and she got first clean and sober. She had to quit drinking and quit using mind-altering drugs. And her wokeness came when she realized every time she got behind the wheel of a car, she would have, she'd start having anxiety inside, that shaking, that where your heart starts to beat, and it would trigger. And her wokeness came when she realized that's where she was sexually abused as a child. Was the perpetrator took her as a child and sexually abused her. And so every time she could not get behind that wheel. So her wokeness was to face that fear, to understand it, and to conquer it. And I remember real clearly, because when she got her driver's license, it was like, woohoo, all of her safety net friends, woohoo, yay, she got her driver's license. And so she lived in a different state. So I went there and I go, well, what are we going to do? What can we do to celebrate? And so we were trying to think of this woke, she got her license, and I go, let's go to a drive-in movie. So back then, you can tell how old this is. We went to a drive-in movie, and she drove, and I'm her passenger, and she was like, dun, 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 conquered it. She can drive this car. She got a driver's license, and we went to a drive-in movie. And this will tell you the date. What happened was the movie that she selected, because it had the word pet in it. We went and saw Pet Cemetery. So here's my friend. We're trying to, conquer our anxiety and our fears, And I just remember staying and watching the drive-in movie, but she would hide her face, like, like, oh, what is it? Oh, whoa, what is it? The dashboard was right here, like, ah. Anyway, we stayed. I said, geez, I conquered that fear too. But that's just another story of when you're woke. Look at the decades and when you knew that you started to value yourself. That it's like right now, one of my affirmations that I look at every day is that it's my birthright to thrive and to have joy. It's my birthright. So when you're woke, know that you're precious. All of your body's precious. You deserve things that feel good to your mind and your body and your spirit. And that you should surround yourself with people that know you and want goodness for you in your mind and body and spirit. And this wokeness, and that's the gift of this pandemic. That's the gift of even these variants. Once again, when we're in our bubbles, or we're being cautious, or we don't want any of our children under 5, and and pray for those. And I'll say this, because when I'm dead, I want it to be said in the cloud: get your vaccine. God damn it, get your vaccine. And that's not Auntie Beatrice. She's different than I am. But get your vaccine. If everybody had 3 shots, I had COVID, but I had the booster and I had 3 shots and I was asymptomatic. And I've been praying for, I guess my prayer has been that the whole world, the whole global world has 3 shots. And then, if we have that and we reach herd immunity, then whatever, it's going to be a new normal. Everything's not going to go back to how we were. It's a new normal. And one of the blessings, like in this wokeness, is even in how we work. I think we're learning to take better care of ourselves. I mean, you can't stay on Zoom 8 hours a day. If you're doing that and you work for a bureaucracy, knock it off, quit it. 3 hours at the most, and take breaks, do things where you're not screen, and be good to yourself. In this, so we're learning that it is your birthright to thrive and to have joy. We're learning now that, yes, we do like to stay home and do our work. Yes, we do like to be present with our children, not just have latchkey children that go home and cook their own top ramen or whatever. we're learning the beauty of spending time together. And I guess, and kind of winding down in that wokeness is, during these next couple of weeks, and go all out if you want to do like Christmas, or if it's a solstice tree, if you're believe other ways. I always think of Bonnie Duran right now, who's a Buddhist, and I just love Bonnie. However you believe, but take all of the learnings and all of what we've acquired in these 90 weeks or during this pandemic, and be precious with your ones that you love. Take time. It's just like I'm intentionally calling I talked to my 68-year-old friend for a couple hours this morning, and she was more important. And so we're making a date. I'm going to do a road trip down there because she has her mask. And so we have a date to make our masks. I guess there was a little pause, but so in the wokeness, I'll leave you with that, and maybe invite you. I guess I'm saying in April when we have our healing conference, I guess I'm going to be helping people make some masks. So come join Natives Wellness Institute in April. And then we always say "Kita kito matsuno." I'll see you later. And I'll thank Shailene. I think we can kind of wind down. I think it's been an hour. And I just want to say Kitsikako, ma'am. From the bottom of my heart and from our Native Wellness team, we love you, and we look forward to what comes in 2022. And we hope to see you in person, even if it's with the mask, but we hope to see you in person. But with that, we'll close down. And I really appreciate you just listening to me this past hour. Thank you very much.